Okay, so I got interrupted, and I know this part of the story is not really interesting. I probably talked about it before, but I'm like really thinking about this because it's so frustrating for so many people, right? Okay, so at 12:15, I started getting ready to get on the bus. So I got on the bus and I went to the bus stop, and then I was transferring buses, and then you know what? Guess what? I was late. I ended up getting late to the bus to the appointment, right? And so, because I was late, they would not let me into the orientation, right? And so I'm like, okay. He told me I could come back the next morning at 8:30 to take care of it. But here's the point. Okay, here's one point that I'm talking about. Okay, my son, when I came home today after this whole waste of my time, I asked my son, did you know ahead of time that you were going to this particular job interview? And he said no, he didn't know. Okay, so sometimes people get, these messed up schedules to where, and I feel sorry for certain people because the more I think about human trafficking and the more I realize what is going on these days. I mean, like, there's a lot of people who are in desperate situations and get put in situations like me. They have employment manipulators who take things from other people. This includes their career, their identity, their work. And, when I think about people who are in positions of poverty, I do believe that it is systematically made this way through underground programs. Okay. It is not because, a lot of people tend to think that people who get services are people who are lazy, or they're shiftless, or they're, worthless, they have no morals or whatever. No, I will tell you, it is the people who are immoral, oftentimes, who keep these people down on purpose. Okay, on purpose. Because the world operates in a way that has become it's always been corrupt. Okay, but like the Laverns are a very good example of this. Now I know the Laverns were associated with the white supremacist group, and this is how they accomplished their goal. Okay, in this particular white supremacist group, seems like they really had it in for me. Okay, and like I said, here I am, a clone from an operation that was of theirs. If you think about this, is a Joseph Mengele idea. This is something that he festered up in his brain, right? So they created me, right, through this operation, and then years later they want to come back and attack me. And what they're upset about is that they were fighting over my swan song manifesto as well as my image. I mean, when I say image, I'm talking about me in general. Okay, as well as how I believe his wife or whatever. Well, no, I know I've had a history of people in England, having issues with, a black person dressing nice. So what they were trying to do was they were trying to, what do you call it, humble me. Okay, this is something that people like to do when it's a form of bullying. Okay, so anyway, um, it has been proven to these people that divine providence versus their man-made puppetry, that I am the winner of this contest. Now, mind you, I did not ask to be in a contest, okay? I did not ask to be in a contest. This is one of these, the problem with it is that we are dealing with mentally ill people. Okay, I had mentioned, Rex Laverne being mentally ill. And sometimes, I would say that being ignorant, okay, can bring on mental illness. Let me tell you exactly what I mean. If a person does not understand, how to use logic or ask questions, sort things through. Like, okay, now all he was fed throughout his entire life was Nazi ideology. That's all he probably, really heard. He's been around people who've, reinforced that. And it's never crossed his mind, that, other people, okay, he never thought, okay, well, how come there's black churches if we're the ones who are calling ourselves Christians? How come they don't put these little ask enough questions to connect the dots or question their religion? Is he sure that this is it? It never crossed his mind that perhaps maybe he was a misguided person. It never crossed his mind. You know what I mean? And then you get somebody who is, not understanding, or only living in a world where, their word matters, and they're ignoring other people. You know what I mean? Like, how other people live, and so they start thinking that when they see somebody else, that you need to learn a lesson. They need to teach you a lesson. It's like, no, I don't need to be taught a lesson. And see, it made no sense. Then when I think about this like experiment, like, or the experiment, and then the churches getting involved and stuff like this, it really doesn't make any sense. Okay, for somebody to bring back King Solomon in some form, okay, and expect them to adhere to your religion. That is just absolutely so absurd. Now, like when I think about things like Latter Day Saints, I really do believe, like, okay, the Latter Day Saints had this idea, or that they wanted to bring back significant people from the past, right? Resurrect them somehow so that they could be brought into Mormonism. This is one of the reasons why they, started, consulting with Jewish people, right? And these Jewish people, their ancestors, kind of the same thing with, my dad and me. This is your family member. We would like to introduce them into whatever religion or bring them back from this time. So people agree to these sort of things, right? But in fact, I'm going to tell you on a spiritual level, bringing people back is not necessary. These people were in heaven and they were just fine. They were just fine. Okay? So it's not necessary. It was an experiment to be messing around. And so, and sometimes I can understand why it's fascinating to mess with these sort of things, but we can see like throughout history and how these sort of these two separate operations kind of merge together, because Mormonism did not formulate from Nazism, but they did have one shared agreement, and this is the issue of genetics. And then Mormons were interested in, keeping track of these sort of things, genealogy. And then we had, these Nazi people who had a very big interest in human cloning, okay? And somehow linking it to people's afterlife. But I will tell you that this is very disturbing on several levels, because what it is, they want to use people as a, what do you call it, like a chess piece. Some of these groups of people like, this Rex Laverne and his groupies and stuff like this, and they seriously were highly indoctrinated. Have they ever considered the entire story? You know what I mean? It's not like I said, it's not like I came out of a womb like this. You know what I mean? Like I came out of some womb, like this, and then people were saying that, oh, I was cursed. And I will tell you, there's nothing cursed about having supernatural abilities. It is a blessing from God. I am the chosen one. I am of God. And it's proven, okay? It's proven, okay? But what I think that I was talking about, going back to the whole Latter-day Saints thing, is like bringing back people. Like, for example, Joan of Arc may have been, I think Joan of Arc was Catholic, okay? I don't remember exactly what religion she was, but she was somebody who was significant, right? And so to them, when you think of it from a religious standpoint, they probably have cloned Joan of Arc, right? Because they want her to be now a part of a Latter-day Saint. Like she was something special at one time, but now we want her to be a part of our thing. And that is not necessary. It's not necessary, okay? I'm going to tell you right now, these people are in heaven if they have not been brought back already. Okay? Because some of these people, when they died, some of these people who have the ability to come back were hanging out in my bedroom, visiting me. Well, and I was sitting here being very, very cold at the entire time. But all of these people that I do remember are of different races and backgrounds. We all have a spirit. Okay, and this is something that I believe like Nazis and certain religions knew, right? But they knew that they could scare people into stories like hellfire and all this other stuff and make people and use this to bully people. Okay, like I said, the idea of cloning is not necessarily bad. Like, I talked about Charles Taze Russell, the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I don't believe everything the Jehovah's Witnesses said, okay? But we do have this issue of cloning, and yes, they did use it for bad things. But could there be a new earth? Where people, like, they were talking about, like, they call it the paradise on earth or the new system or whatever. That's how they referred to it. Could that possibly be? You know what I mean? I would say, yeah, it's possible. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, well, then let's try to make it as good as we possibly can. That's all I'm saying, okay? I would never ask to be a part of something like this. And I do understand that there was a lot of tension and a lot of hate that went through. And I know that this is one of the reasons why we had a lot of infiltration in our personal lives and stuff like that. This was like a little war, covert war. That was, I'm going to address Nazis right now. I had nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. And I would have never been a part of anything like that. But see, I understand you're the hate group type association and the mindset that's developed in that. It doesn't matter. It seems it's like you want to dominate. I don't. The world and its problems, has been created by groups that think like this. You know what I mean? That's just it is what it is. Okay, and I think everybody has seen this. Okay, it's been proven. Um, let's see. Okay, now what I wanted to talk to, and I hope certain people are listening. Okay, because I would feel like now that I have Rex Laverne as well as Rex Laverne's wife and Diana Ross out of my way, and hopefully, I'm letting Donald Trump understand and know, as well as everyone else in the White House. Let's not make this a religious issue ever again. I am here for one reason and one reason only. This is my last journey here on Earth, and I'm going to clean up the world as much as I possibly can. And I understand that right now we have an issue when it comes to social media. Social media has these particular groups have been working overtime to, squash people such as myself, as well as people of my soul tribe and people that they refer to as targeted individuals, blocking us out through programs like human trafficking, giving us no voice on social media and isolating us. Now, one of the reasons why I'm connecting a link to WebMD on my in my moral reset, right? The reason why I'm doing it is because I'm talking about, like, for example, getting these chemicals, like, dose, right? The dopamine, whatever, these particular chemicals is that this is something that doctors recommend us. And now, don't get me wrong. I don't sit here and like the, what do you call it, the pharmaceutical industry or anything like this. But what I'm saying is these things are been proven that these things are essential for us to have in order to function. And I have worked for employers where they literally put you in environments where you're not going to get anything positive in your day. It's like your environment is so bleak, and so this is one of the reasons why I sometimes wonder about the alien races. Maybe some alien races do not require, like I said, they don't have empathy. Not everybody has empathy, right? Some people may not understand that some people need certain stimulations. And I would say the majority of people need stimulations. We need to be able to feel better, at some point. We feel down at certain times and we recharge. We find something to recharge us, whether that be an energy drink. Some people drink energy drinks. Some people get up and walk around or whatever. If we cannot stay in constant states of boredom, so we do something about it, right? I don't know what else to say about people like Rex Laverne who initiates these sort of hate crimes on other people, other than it's got to come down to this sort of DNA makeup. Because like what I felt like I experienced, the very fact that I have nervous issues to this very day is because I feel like the kind of energy that I felt that was directed to me is not, it is not in any way normal. It is to me like straight up demonic. Like it lingers. Okay, it's so, and it's so evasive. We had people that sat here and played games, cyberbullying. They want you to be bullied. They want to send you messages every single minute they possibly can, insinuate it, intimidate you every single minute of the day. That to me is demonic as hell. Okay, it is what it is. Okay, now going back to the social media thing. Social media is a goddamn nightmare. Okay, and I had already addressed Mark Zuckerman on one of my videos. Okay, now it's at the point right now where I go to Facebook every once in a while, and yes, the only thing I go to Facebook for is number one to see the cute reels of like this little bear that I love. Right, he's super cute, and of course when they throw the Elon Musk reels, in my face, I cannot help but watch them. Okay, because I get my daily dose of Elon Musk. Right. So anyway, I watch these things, right? I think they're cute, but I get disturbed on things like Facebook sometimes, okay? And I've had people contact me being impersonators and this sort of stuff, and sometimes it's just like I don't want anybody messing with me. It's like, and I see certain celebrities who have multiple accounts in the same name. Are they legitimate? I don't know. You know what I mean? But anyway, we don't get a lot of, I appreciate Facebook for, I don't have any problems like connecting with people on Facebook. And like most people on social media, you have Facebook friends, right? And I appreciate people who connect, right? But, I don't seem to have a lot of issues on Facebook. I've never had problems getting friends on Facebook. But when it comes to things like YouTube, where I'm making videos and stuff like this, okay, I do know that there is a shadow channel that was taken from me, hooked up somehow, and connected to this. I believe this white nationalist organization is what I believe it is. Okay, and I do believe that these people have like a love-hate relationship with me. And what I'm saying is like, yes, it is a very strange thing, how some white people are, when it comes to they're fascinated with my strength, they're fascinated with my power, and they get intimidated. But like I said, I have to remind these people and bring it back to perspective. Okay, I am a creation of somebody that you highly admired. That would be Joseph Mengele. Okay, I'm one, and his little groupie friends that you guys helped bring into the country. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I'm familiar with you. I am not here to threaten you in any way. I'm just letting you know that you're on the wrong path. Okay, and now I think it's important that you do understand that there should really be no debate about whether or not the Swan Song Manifesto is mine. I created it. Okay, I created it. And see, I have met some white supremacist people before. Like when I was living in California City, there was this one dude that he would, first he wanted to really intimidate me, okay? And he had a swastika on his ankle and everything. He wanted to intimidate me. He wanted to look all buff and everything. And, I chewed him out one day, okay? And then like the very few days later, he came by and he helped me with my car. You know what I mean? Because I really feel as though a lot of the people who grow up in these sort of hate groups, I really do feel like they're lost people. A lot of them are. They're very lost. You know what I mean? It's probably that they didn't feel like they had any affection or attention when they were younger, and people want to feel good about themselves, so they'll grasp for those sort of straws. Really, they will. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I'm aware of where the hate came from, and I understand how widespread it is. So when it comes to social media, we need to start all over again. We need to start all over again, because it's like you're blacking out, what do you call it? People who can really make a difference. The TI community is really where it's at. Like I'm telling you that there's people who could be builders of, the new earth. And we could be, this is the truth. We would be brilliant builders of the new earth, innovative people that a lot of these groups are highly threatened by. And this is the reason why. And I mean, I'm going to do what I can here on my end. And I was thinking, when I woke up this morning, I sit in bed for a little bit with my coffee. And I was thinking, okay, number one, I was already dreading the appointment. But number two, I was thinking about a website, that could be created by, people who are tech savvy. I'm not. But, finding jobs, that are based on who we are, instead of I understand there's job websites, right, and talking about the job requisition, right, but I think, like, for example, I personally think that it's helpful when a person's trying to find their ideal kind of workplace. There should be some sort of intrigue or fascination or liking. I should at least like, okay, the kind of industry that you work in. You know what I mean? So like let's just say, for example, there's art, or there's a music, or there's some sort of like hobbies or something that's broken down to that, chemicals, experiments, whatever, science that interests you. And you can like click on these, and obviously you add in what you do for a living, and it can help you go to the right employer. Something along those lines. You know what I mean? And people could adapt, certain ideas, like as to talking about the kind of work environments they are. I think that this girl was making a really big deal about me. I would say not so much the girl, but the Nazi group. Okay, the Nazi group was, making a big deal about my unique personality. They didn't like the fact that they referred to me as somebody who, I guess, me living by myself. See, and this is a result of your highly revered Joseph Mengele. Had I not, had this experiment happened, I probably wouldn't have existed. Okay, not this time around. Okay. I've been cloned several times that I've understood through the reading that I created, and I see that most of the times I've been cloned was through incubator. This one time with Diana Ross. Okay, Every other time that I've been here, it's been through an incubator. But when it comes to, Joseph Mengele and this time of experimenting, probably by use of a woman, an actual woman, um, you know, uh, I've only been, attacked by you people. Like, I've only dealt with hate crimes, being bullied at school, being bullied at work, being gossiped about, and this is your own doing. It's your own doing. So maybe what I represent to you is karma, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm just going to cut you some slack and get on with my life. Okay. So either jump on board with the New Earth Project, or just, I don't know, you can do whatever, but this is what I'm into right now. Okay. And so I'm talking about, rebuilding, you know, uh, that using us targets, to us targets taking our place. You know what I mean? And we need some way of doing it. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, we need to rebuild like websites, like, for example, LinkedIn, and I understand these things get infiltrated by perps. And these, what I'm referring to, are perps, are people like Rex Laverne, his wife, and people who were associated, like Nazis, overly religious and mentally ill people are the ones who infiltrate these places, things. And like, you'll go into certain websites and you see these people with their, incomplete profiles and stuff like that. There's got to be a way, okay? Like I was talking about, like rethinking steps, processes, and steps, okay? How can we eliminate this? How can we eliminate fake accounts? How can we do it? Okay, I'm asking people like Zuckerberg. I'm asking people like, who else? Who else is, I'm really ignorant when it comes to technology. I use the hell out of it, but I don't know how it's created. Okay, so I'm just throwing this out there. How can it be created to where there cannot be fake accounts? Because there's got to be a way to do it. Yeah, I know it usually verifies you through your email or your cell phone, and that needs to be it. There's got to be some sort of blocking to where there is no way, no other way that people can just continue to do this, because it's causing a problem. Okay, it's causing a problem. There's got to be ways where people can stop being shadow banned. How do you do it? Okay, it's an issue, and if there is no assistance in this issue, then there must be some sort of compliance. To who? There's there some sort of group that you're supporting? Okay, and then if there isn't, okay, if there isn't, then let's take this seriously, because I'm addressing this issue. This is a very serious issue. Okay, unless, of course, that you were a part of a takeover. You know what I mean? And I'm asking because it's important that we get this cleared up. Okay, and not just for me, because like I said, I would like to help create and see. I'm interested in myself. What would the world be like without human trafficking? Well, I'm telling you that this plays a big role in human trafficking, and it needs to stop. And so, what I'm talking about, creating professional websites that are based on, real true matches, instead of like, working, this job here and this job here. And this, to me, it seems like it just reeks of human trafficking. Okay, why is it that you can't stay at a job for longer than 2 years? It's always got to be a game. You know what I mean? And this is what I'm saying. No more game playing. You know what I mean? Employers should take a serious, stance on what kind of environment, what kind of vibe, what kind of culture it is that they are having, and let this be known to people so that people can start falling in the right places. Let the artistic be among the artistic. Let the brilliant be among the brilliant. Let the people who like to sit here and ponder and constantly think of innovative ideas be among their own people. That's what I'm saying. And so, I was thinking about calling this site Bright Day New Way, and then, somehow creating this so that, I don't know, I'm just making up the name, okay? But I'm throwing it out there. I do not have the resources to build this, but I'm letting you know that this needs to be done. Okay, in order for things to be better, we need to be able to protect the people who are of real value, who have something truly to contribute. The reason why we're getting attacked and we're getting blocklisted and everything is because they know that they don't have what we have. I hate to say it. It's not me bragging or anything, but it is. It is. They feel threatened. They want to shut us out, and it is. But see, this little school game, this little, this carelessness and this ignorance has gone too far. Okay, now we're looking at genocide here. Okay, we cannot be blocked out from the world. We need to be fully active members within society. That means the whole shebang, and have access to everything. And we should have our voices heard. This needs to stop. So that's one thing I was thinking about. And I do believe that. And see, I don't. Okay, I'm going to let you know right now. There's a lot of things that I believe are created on social media to try to get under my skin. Okay, and I had got this message that the whole moon landing thing was possibly, and like I said, I only saw a segment of it. So then that made me so. When I started thinking about it, I kept thinking, well, if that was meant to be under my skin, then I'm not going to rewatch it if in case I didn't miss something. I missed something the first time. Okay, but a lot of times they'll encourage, actors or whatever, to seriously. I kid you not. This is how petty that they want so bad to win a game that I wasn't aware of. It took me a long time to figure it out, but they really wanted to get the message to me that they wanted me dead. Okay, their beloved Joseph Mengelé's creation that they want to attack all the time. You know what I mean? But whatever, it makes no sense to me. But I did get an intuitive message that Elon Musk had publicly admitted, that he was fond of me, like meaning like he was a fan of mine or something along those lines. And I think that might have ignited some hatred or something from people. And that's unfortunate. Okay. I do think that he has been taken advantage of, as well as, I have been to, as well as a lot of the celebrities. Okay. And I'm very, very sad about it. So I have been giving thought. And though some people are going to say, oh, this is all, this is all about Elon. Yeah, it makes me sad to see that Elon has been mistreated. But I also understand that, I have been mistreated, right? That's one of the reasons why I was pissed off, because I was like walking home today. And I was also upset because, I see a lot of the stars that I grew up with, and I see that, they've been mistreated, and this needs to stop. I mean? These people are literally able to run amok. And the reason why they think that they can run amok is because they believe in a dominion theology. Okay. That is terrorism. Okay. When people block you out and they're messing with you, especially, putting people in situations where they're financially abused, bullying people, this kind of stuff must never happen again. And there needs to be things put in place when it comes to social media so this does not happen. Okay, everybody should be able to enjoy social media. So if like, for example, Facebook or like Instagram does not seem to care about the targeted individual community, perhaps there are some targeted individuals who might still have some wealth left. I mean, because these people try to empty you out, they steal from you. Okay, is what they do. And if you're able to put your resources together to create a website, that would be great. Okay. Because this is something that we need desperately, I get the intuitive message that a lot of people agree with my my view on these ghost postings, and like I said, this is something I'm addressing, and I really would like to talk to someone about, lawmakers, and I need to start reaching out to people. Okay. And I know that there was an underground program, okay, through the white supremacist underground program, that when these underground networks work, work their magic, behind the scenes, they will use anybody. So you don't have to be, just because you're black or you're Mexican. When I see you in front of the counter, I'm much aware that they can still influence you to do something. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why it makes it so that I can't trust anybody. Okay, in order for them to accomplish their goal, they will use anybody. Okay, this is how ruthless they are. Okay, so but I do want to find the right people. Not just to make them aware, because I'm going to be talking about these issues in the moral reset, but not just to make them aware. We need to make these things happen. You see what I'm saying? We need to make these things happen so that people can have a better life in the future. Okay, and as we go along. All right, so I get the intuitive message that I can take control of my profession. And this is something I was thinking about doing. I talked about making a commercial. We need to understand that social media is not our friend. If you are a TI, social media is not your friend. Indeed.com, as thankful as I am that they have, created, commercials that seem to relate to us, okay, we still have an issue with things like, ghost ads and stuff like that. So, and I understand that, and it's unfortunate, and this could be, a part of the program where, you know, this particular underground syndicate has encouraged employers to, you know, distance themselves from the old fashioned role of answering phones as well as emails. Okay. And so it's become very difficult for people to reach, you know, the appropriate personnel, you know, the hiring personnel. Okay. And this is very, you know, I honestly think that this is a shame. I personally think that that should change. Okay. If somebody, you know, I think that, you know, if I had a company, I would definitely be interested in acquiring talent and acquisition. You know, people have a talent acquisition or an HR representative who's constantly, you know, interacting, engaging with people. Unfortunately, I know a lot of companies don't do that, but it's very difficult to get through. See, and you see how difficult it is for people to get a job. Now, this is one of the reasons why I'm considering, you know, we need to do things that are going to make sure that we get seen. And so we have to come up with clever ways of introducing ourselves and getting ourselves noticed. And see, like I said, and you know, we have to consider all the issues and that has occurred. You know, we need to be able to contact people, and that they have made it very difficult to do that. Okay, so I'm addressing President Trump on this one. You know, I can't make companies answer their phone, unfortunately, but I honestly do feel as though nowadays, you know, that you know, businesses and the consumer, there's too much of a distance. You know, we don't communicate. Everything is automated and everything, and that does create a problem, doesn't it? So sometimes I feel as though, and don't get me wrong, I know I was attacked for not really enjoying technology. You know, I think people, you know, bash me for that. And it's like I said, you know, I enjoy the benefits of technology, you know, enough. Okay. But some of it is, it just got to the point where now, you've made it almost impossible. You've made it almost impossible, you know, to get through, you know, to make sure that people can find the right jobs. Okay. And that's a problem. You know, so for certain companies that care about finding the right talent, you might want to consider that. You know, I can't, like I said, I can't make people do that. That's your own, you know, thing. But, you know, if I was a company, I will tell you, I will go in more into, you know, what I would do if I had my own company. Okay. But, you know, I would love to own my own company. Okay, you know, and I understand that I would feel very happy to make sure that I would be allowing the people who had their inner drive and their inner vision to live that out, you know, through my company. You know what I mean? I would be a very high vibrational type company that is focused on success. So focused on, you know, perfecting the product or the service that I would offer. I'm not thinking of one specifically, but I'm just saying this is where my mind has always been. Okay, and the sad part is that, you know, when I deal or you know, hear about all these businesses that sit here and have time to play games, post fake ads and stuff like this, these are the sort of businesses that really need to be reported on Green Door. Okay, and once they get reported on Green Door, they need to be forgotten, stepped aside, and let someone else take place. And this is what I'm talking about. You know, a lot of these unethical companies, they need to be highlighted. Okay, and people need to know about them. Okay, and since you're thinking about things relating to the new earth, what is good for us now, what's being going to be good for us in the future, you can make your decision then. If these people are the kind of people that like to play in genocide games, because that's exactly what it is. Okay, if you like playing in genocide games, why would I support you? I won't be a patron of yours, and I'm not going to sit here and try to work for you either. Okay, and so people need to think about this. So continue posting your grievances with your shitty employers on websites like, you know, Green Door, wherever you can sit there and state their name. Okay, because this is right now, since they wanted to play a cleansing game. Okay, and that's not the point. I was completely unaware of this. Okay, but now we are at the point where if we don't do something, then we're going to be screwed. Okay, so we need to start pulling our ideas together and start, you know, moving into this direction if this is what you care about. Okay. um I had spoken a few days ago about, you know, creating an exclusive network. Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm so thirsty, it's like it's just ridiculous. Anyway, I was thinking about doing that because, you know, I understand there's a lot of women like myself, okay, who have very high standards. We do not have time to sit here and play petty games that a lot of women resort to. The kind of petty games, such as, you know, the one that Mrs. Laverne was doing. Okay, and a lot of women really are ashamed of themselves for behaving this way. Okay, but I am a very self-confident person. I'm a very assertive, okay? And I understand that, the importance of my survival. I cannot be, you can throw men in my face all day long, okay? But my goals are always on my focus is always straight ahead. You know what I mean? So I'm saying is I need to be in a network that understands my needs. Okay? And I understand that there's other women who are very strong, and sometimes they deal with a lot of stuff that they'd rather not deal with, but they don't get the support that they really need. So and there's certain things that I want to talk about as of being a woman of substance. Our high standards. Okay, we do have extremely high standards, and I am not ashamed of that. Let me tell you why it's important to have high standards as a woman. Okay, now my high standards is because I choose to have the best quality life I could possibly have. Okay, especially since it's my last time around. Okay, I do want the best quality of life. And if I had a child, I would want her to have the best quality of life, yes, as well. I would also encourage her to, uh, be surrounded and continually beautify herself as well as her surroundings, because this is what allows women, if I was, okay, because I'm not married material, I'm never going to get married, okay, I'm not getting married, okay, but I'm saying it, but if she wanted to get married, okay, it would open her opportunities to the finer stock of men. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Women of substance, people who have standards. Okay, it is not good enough to just, accept willy nilly. Okay, and it's not good enough for me, and I don't think it's good enough for a lot of women who have standards. And this is what a lot of people talk about. Women who get in these situations where they got these girls that are constantly stabbing them in the back, and they're always like, women who are jealous of them, who compete with them, who try to downgrade their shine and all this other stuff. I want to walk around among women who are proud of themselves and who do not feel intimidated and who don't have to resort to that sort of games. I hate that shit. Okay, and once you start that crap with me, I make sure that we'll never be friends again. Because I remember dealing with girls like this at Murray Family Farms. That little chubby girl, what was her name? Selena. She was constantly doing that. And I would tell her to knock it off. And then, she told me she can't help it. And then, she said, I'm jealous. Like, it's like she was that was justification for her to act like a monster. No, it's not, but I'm hoping things like the moral reset is going to help people understand the importance of self-love, self-respect. You know what I mean? So they don't do stupid stuff like Rex Laverne's wife. You know what I mean? The more I think about her, the more pathetic. And I just giggle. She's like my little inside joke. I just like that's so funny. Anyway, um, I get the feeling that Elon was abused by some of these people, and I guess I could feel it. That's one of the reasons why I wrote about him in my newsletter. And thing is, like all of this confusion that was going on, I couldn't quite understand that. Um, okay, when a bunch of people are involved, it's hard for me to dissect who is doing what and what, because I remember a few years ago, I was really angry and I started like getting really pissed off, and I started talking about, I knew that my ex-boyfriend's mother was involved in this, and she was a part of this group. Whether directly or indirectly, she was a part of it. My brother was a part of it. But who are literally playing the, moving all the strings? Some of these people are just like, a part of the group. How active are people in this group? Okay. I didn't know anything about, I really didn't know who Elon Musk was. Like back in 2012, I don't think I remember anything about him. I had just recently found out about this person like about 5 years ago. Okay. And then in February, like I never really thought, oh, I think he's so cute. I would think he's like a handsome guy. But like in February, I started thinking he's really cute, like very cute. But anyway, I never really, if they had originally thought that I liked him before I took an interest in him, I don't know what to tell them, you know what I mean? But I know that they were always trying to throw and encourage people to be a part of my life, be whatever, like Justin Hayward and all these other things, So I don't know. But yeah, I do believe that they were doing abusive things to Elon Musk. I got that feeling, and it kind of made me sad, really made me sad. Okay, so anyway, I think I mentioned the thing about the website, and then yeah, basing the website on ideal environments that are conducive to people's well-being and their lifestyle. And I think that that would be a great idea. I know it would be for me. Now, I never really saw myself like when I don't know why they, I think they were stirring up a lot of trouble about me. I really think that they made it seem like, I was so different that I couldn't cooperate with anyone else. The reason why I had outbursts in my places of work is because generally I was responding to either their stupid racist comments or something else that they shouldn't have done. And when they said that I didn't like being around people, of course I don't like being around racist people, obviously racist people. And I don't like being around people who are too intrusive. So I'd walk away or instead of like if they're inviting me to lunch, I'm like, you know what, that's okay. I think I'll go eat in my car or go somewhere else. I don't want to be around those sort of people. So no, I mean, I get tired of people making it seem like I'm so different that I can't sit at a desk and do my job. You know what I mean? I think that's over the top and ridiculous. And then the whole thing about the office supplies, decorations, I also hate that too. And I'll tell you why. Because, where I got those office supply decorations from? From like regular conservative people. Growing up, I used to see regular people that went to church who were married and they had their little office space and they had their little knickknacks. And what the bobblehead was one of them. Or those little balls that you throw and the other one kind of goes like this or whatever, that kind of stuff. Okay. So office, what do you call it? Ornaments have been around forever. Okay. But you notice how they exaggerate it. Oh, she does this and she does that. I think it's just right over the top. And it's just another, a bunch of propaganda to be fueled against me, because they hate me because I don't know. They don't, because when in this situation, you guys have no one to blame but yourself. When it comes to the white race that was attacking me, and really, I'm saying this because I'm total peace, right? I'm not trying to stir the pot, okay? But I'm when I think about this, it's like, okay, I didn't create myself. This was a Joseph Mengele thing, okay? I got rid of myself in 1956. I was gone, right? And then you guys came back and had to bring me back, okay? So I am your karma, okay? And I'm taking it easy on you guys, okay? But I'm trying to clean up what you guys made, and I am really going to clean it up, okay? So I'm doing the best I possibly can. So, and really, you shouldn't complain because a lot of you guys have a shitload of children, and that would probably benefit from the new Earth if you think about it. So, well, try to show some respect, please. Anyway, I was thinking about advertising because I think employers really do need to be educated, not just on sexual harassment, and I want to be able to educate employers in a way where it will stick. Okay, and I understand, like people hear one thing and it goes in one ear and out the other, and that's a problem. Okay, like what happened here. I think what happened here really needs to be remembered. Okay, but yeah, I think I was thinking about going and not specific, I mean exclusively. Okay, but I offer temporary services. I also offer bookkeeping services, and then also structural. I mean, and office structure environment type services is what I'm doing. But I don't mind going to charge people for seminars on. I was thinking about creating a presentation and advertising my experience with human trafficking and having like a question and answer session for like maybe an hour or something like that, which I think is important. Like, how do you identify human trafficking? You know, that kind of education, I think it's important too. Really, I think human trafficking is just as important as sexual harassment training when you really think about it. I really do believe that's true, because it's so important that people be able to recognize people who need help. You know what I mean? And they're right in front of your face. You know what I mean? And you're watching this person basically be set for death, is what you are doing. So it's like this is genocide being played out in the open, and people need to pay attention to it. So my son seems like he's going to be working, starting his job tomorrow. The only thing I can do is pray that his employer is a decent person. I did ask him. I said, "Do you think you're going to like it there?" And he said, "Yeah, And I never want to. I'm going to tell you that throughout my career, I have always worried about starting a job. I've always worried about. I've never felt safe at my job. I've always worried, and I've never had a peace of mind at my work. I've always kept thinking, okay, when are they going to start messing with me? Okay, and I will tell you, as a woman who only cares about making the best life for her kid and wanting her kid to never have to suffer as she did, I care about these things. I don't want my son going into a shitty work environment, being mistreated and being bullied. Okay. It's like, and I don't want somebody, bullying my son for things that I do. We are two separate people. You know what I mean? This is how I raise my son. My son has his own likes, his own, his own doings, his own whatever, and I have mine. Now when he was a kid, and little, I would sit there and say, okay, these are the rules, but we have our own way of living. You know what I mean? And what I do is completely different from my son. So hopefully this will be a good start for my son, and hopefully we can walk away from what I believe was the most traumatizing thing I ever had to deal with. So anyway, moving on. Talk to you later.